So the class today, the Healthy Hips and Back class, is just going to be a focus on the front line, but more specifically just the muscles in the front of the pelvis, which are actually laid right on top of the pelvic bones. So Karen here, my beautiful wife, is going to demonstrate the sitting posture that we often find ourselves in, especially when we are looking forward at a computer screen and have our hands on a keyboard. So a couple things I'd like you to notice is, one, that her shoulders are rounded forward, so this really decreases the space in between your shoulders and makes kind of the resting length of the chest muscles quite short, and we'll certainly address that today. But more to the point is the orientation of her pelvis. Now here her pelvis is tilted back, and with that it just puts a lot of compression in the area, or a lot of shortness in the area of the psoas muscle, and it's actually two muscles that we're talking about. It's not only the psoas muscle, and it's also the iliacus that connects, or the psoas connects into the iliacus and then goes into the inner thigh, and I'll show that anatomy in a moment. But really, this whole closure of the front body here is very problematic for our hips, for our back, and if it's problematic for the hips and for the back, it's pretty much problematic for everything. And it's not just in the posture, it's also in movement, of course, where we'll find the negative effects of really tight muscles in the front body come to be noticed. So if you can sit like you should sit when you're at a computer. So you can see her pelvis noticeably tilts forward, shoulders drawn back. Here, chest is certainly much more open. There's still compression in this area here, but the lower back isn't quite or nearly as stressed as when the pelvis is tilted back in the position she was in the first place. So thank you very much, my lovely wife. So I had mentioned just the location of the psoas, and this will help maybe give you a little more visual and certainly reason why we're doing some of the things that we're doing, especially the times that are very uncomfortable. So the psoas is actually connected to these bottom 5 vertebrae. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but there's 5 little red blotches here. So the lumbar vertebrae is where the psoas attaches. It comes down right to the front of the pelvis here, and connects with the iliacus, excuse me. So these two muscles form a very large muscle and connect to the inner thigh. Now, what they're responsible for is lifting your leg or bringing your knee up. So if you can see with this, I don't know if you can see, but we'll give it a shot. So if you can see right here, when you're in the sitting position, there's some slack that goes into the elastic that I'm holding right around the psoas. And when your leg is in extension, the tension comes in. So if you sit a lot, again, the resting length of the muscles here becomes a little shorter. And when you try to do anything else, even standing, let alone running, or taking your leg into extension, it's going to create a whole lot of tension in these muscles. And the tension, of course, doesn't just remain in these muscles. It creates tension in the lower back, certainly in the hips as well. So as mentioned, this is going to be the focus of the class today. And instead of really concentrating on the anatomy itself, just think of this area here, from kind of upper inner thighs to the space behind your belly button connected to your spine. That's the area of focus. And we will touch certainly on another problem area when we do sit in a computer with our shoulders forward and rounded forward like that. So we'll try to open up the chest in addition to the front of the pelvis. So thank you very much. What Karen is going to, or how we're going to start, is we're going to start with a bolster underneath our hips. Now, when you do this, obviously what you can see is that our hips are elevated. The elevation isn't too much, but it could feel like a lot in your body. Shoulders are down, heels are down, but pelvis, front of the pelvis is elevated. So this area here is getting a passive stretch. Now, with both legs extended, you might find that there's quite a deep compression or feeling of compression into your back bend. So what you can do to start is to bend one knee and just place the sole of your foot on the ground. This will take some of the feeling of that compression out, but if it's still too much, then just remove the bolster and just lie flat on the ground. If you don't have a bolster at home, just get some pillows or something comfortable. If you have a block at home, you can certainly use a block. Obviously, it's a little harder, but if you'd like something softer, just get a bunch of pillows, place them underneath your pelvis, and then that'll certainly serve the same purpose as a bolster. So start as you like. The centering here is going to be about 2 minutes, and if you do start with your knee bent, then I'll just say in 1 minute, or I'll let you know in about a minute to switch legs. So start in the position that you are intending to hold. Take a deep breath in through your nose, and then a big exhalation out through your mouth. Just soften your lips together. Just ensure that there's tension in your jaw, so there's a little space in between your teeth behind your softly closed lips. Now, specifically on your exhalation, I would like you to bring your awareness to that area that I discussed, just behind your belly button, attached to your spine, into the front of your pelvis, and then upper inner thigh. And every time you exhale, I'd like you to intentionally, so let's call it active relaxation, try to intentionally soften in that area just a little bit more. And you may find that in stillness your mind does wander, so this would be your anchor point, or the place to come back to is that area. And the reason I say specifically on your exhalation is because that is the calming side of your breath cycle for your nervous system. Extend your exhalations so you do have a little bit more time to actively relax that area. And as such as well, the exhalation calms the nervous system. Now, if you do have the sole of one foot on the ground, just switch legs. If you're, as Karen is, with both legs extended, just stay as you are for the minute. As always, with any yoga class, take the options that are appropriate for you in the moment that they're offered. Always allow room for exploration. If what I'm offering in any variation that I'm offering in, or the use of props, doesn't just seem to work for you, then try something that you think might. And that's a really important way to get to know your body, is to explore through the practice, through the postures. So keep the bolster where it is for the moment, but bend your knees and walk your feet a little closer to your bum, and keep your feet parted maybe 4 or 6 inches, and walk your feet back so you feel that your ankles are more or less underneath your knees. And then push down evenly through the soles of your feet and lift your pelvis until you feel a little more tension now come to the front of your pelvis, and a little more into your lower back, compression that is. On your exhalation, lower your bum very gently back to your bolster. When your bolster, or your bum comes to your bolster, then start your next in-breath, and just follow the flow of your breathing. And closing your eyes can really help in many postures, but in all the postures really, but to just kind of get the peripheral view out of your mind's eye and focus you a lot more on the internal happenings, whether that's physical sensation or even just the thoughts that may or may not be interrupting your practice. One more, but this time keep your hips lifted. So push down evenly through your feet, keep your hips lifted for a moment. If you notice that you're moving weight more so into the outer edges of your feet, just push a little more firmly through your big toe mounds and inner heels. And now take the bolster and just pull it out from underneath you. And exhale to lower your bum softly back to your mat. Now could be one knee, or you could bring both knees up into your chest at the same time. Take your hands, or even wrap your arms around your shins and hug your thighs in towards you. Now, while your feet is lifted, if you've been to my Healthy Hips and Back class, I'm a big proponent of foot health, and just like many other things in your body, your feet stay healthy by moving them, your toes and feet stay healthy by moving them. So start to move your toes, move them independently from each other. Try to move them even collectively, like you're curling them in, spreading them nice and wide. And then ankles as well, so point your toes forward, flex them back, move them clockwise and counterclockwise, so whatever movement you can bring into your ankles here as well. And lower your feet, still knees bent, but lower your feet close to your bum. And start to rock your knees from side to side. And yeah, as Karen has, she's taken a little more space between her feet. You're welcome to do that or keep your feet closer together. So again, trying things out as you'd like. And through a range of motion and a pace that just suits you. And if you're dealing with anything sensitive in your back or anywhere in your body, you may want to just find a little bit slower pace through the movements. And here you can also add a turn of your head and turn your head in the opposite direction your knees happen to be flowing. Again, very gently loosening up tissues here while we're reclined. And a lot less stress when you are lying down, a lot less stress into your hips and lower back, or back, let's just go with back, than when you're standing or even certainly sitting as well. So the next time your knees point up towards the ceiling, you can either bring them back up into your chest and get a little momentum to rock to your seat, ultimately ending up in all fours, or you can roll over to a side and push up off the side. Now our knees will be on the ground, either one or both, for the next, say, 8 to 10 minutes. If it's uncomfortable for you to have your knees on your mat alone, you can just take a blanket or anything softer and place it underneath your knees. And that might give you a little bit more comfort throughout the next, like I said, 8 or 10 minutes. Now pick up one hand, just shake out your hand, roll your wrist a little bit, and do the same with the other hand. Even a little pressure into the back of your hands is something you can place. And now as Karen has, tuck your toes, keep them tucked. Place your palms back on your mat and make sure your fingertips are awake, or fingers are awake, so spread your fingertips nice and wide apart. And then start to move your bum back towards your heels, creating more pressure now into your toes, also into the arches of your feet. You can keep your chest lifted, or you could soften it and your forehead towards the ground if you'd like, but keep the pressure into your toes here. Come back up to all fours and untuck your toes. Take your knees a little further apart and bring your toes behind you to touch. Move your bum back to your heels, and we'll just take about 3 or 4 breaths in child's pose, actually about 6. But walk your hands over to the left side of your mat and bring tension in doing so down the right side of your ribcage and try to breathe into that space there. So setting up for just for the rest of the class, a little stretch in between the ribs and the muscles on top of the rib cage themselves here. Now walk your hands all the way over to the right side of your mat for the same purpose. And walk your hands back to the middle of your mat. And when they arrive, come up to all fours. Your knees are parted wider than your hips. Bring them underneath your hips. Whether you tuck or untuck your toes, it's going to be a personal preference here. Start to move your spine. Flexion extension seems to be just almost the first natural way that people start to move their spine. And you can certainly start that way, but add movement, whatever feels. Actually, whatever naturally just feels like your body is calling for. Those of you that would like to take this up to downward facing dog and continue to find movement, there's maybe another 4 breaths or so to explore that if you'd like. When you come to downward facing dog, you lengthen the back of your legs and you can find just a little more tension down your calf, Achilles, up certainly into your Now if your knees are lifted in downward facing dog, next time you exhale, place them softly back to your mat. And step your left foot forward. It's a good place also to keep your blocks very handy. And you can always bring the ground up to you using blocks. Now, if possible, walk your left foot a little further forward from where you placed it, and then sink your hips in the same direction, so forward towards the front of your mat. Now, if you keep your chest angled forward and your hands on your blocks, there might be some tension, certainly some tension felt in the right side of your pelvis, front of your pelvis. But if you'd like to take your hands off your blocks and take them to your thigh, your left thigh, start to lift your chest a little higher. Keep your hips sinking low with the pull of your left foot. And then you can add some muscular engagement to deepen that sensation of stretch in the front of your pelvis by pulling in through your lower belly. So you'll feel this defined pelvic tilt backwards. Feel it another way is lengthening your tailbone downwards. Now roll the heads of your shoulders back. You feel a little more connected through the muscles in between your shoulder blades, a little more open across your chest. Take a final breath in the posture, and then lower your hands to the inside of your left foot. And wiggle your left foot loose until you can extend your left leg towards the back wall at hip height. And here again, you might want to take your hands off blocks or place them on the lowest side so you've got a little more support or stability with the blocks. Now extend your left arm or right arm forward, excuse me. You can just keep the extension and the posture is a static one. You can move just your leg if you'd like, or just your arm, or both. So exhale to round your back, pull your thigh forward, bring your right elbow back and squeeze them up. Inhale to extend your leg back, even lift a little here. So again, extending through the front body. Exhale, round and squeeze your thigh and elbow up. Just continue once again to move with your breath. And the ends of the range here are so important, as is the space between them, but the squeezing up of your left thigh just to help strengthen your psoas muscle. We talk a lot about stretching it, or those muscles. I don't want to say it's only the psoas. But we talk about stretching it a lot, but those muscles need to be very strong as well. The psoas, as it happens, is the only muscle that connects your pelvis to your spine. So imagine how important posturally that job is. Now do one more, find your extension. And then lower your hand and your knee. When your knee comes down, you can move to child's pose. You can move to downward facing dog. And this is a big winner with my wife. And if you do happen again to have a partner that is doing this for you, just ensure that it's not a push down, that there is some pressure downwards, but it's more of a pulling back along with a little bit of downward pressure, just to create some space, some release in the low back area, sacral area. Okay, now come back up to all fours. Step your opposite foot forward, step your right foot forward. As you did before, when you step your foot forward, see if you can inch your toes just a little further forward and then sink your hips forward so they go lower, closer to the ground. Take a breath, take two. Feel some tension in the front of your pelvis on the left side. You never want to shock the nervous system, bringing in too much sensation all at once. Allow it to be a process or a gradual increasing of that sensation. Now, if you did on the last side, that's okay for you to do on this side. Place your hands on your thigh. And as Karen did, she came up first. If you can move your hips back down, if it's safe for you to do that, then allow that to happen. Keep the pull of your right foot present. Now draw in through your low belly, so you feel your lowest set of ribs drawing in. This deepens the sensation of tension on the left side. And once again, roll the heads of your shoulders back. So you feel, again, connected in between your shoulder blades. And when the muscles in the back here contract, the ones in the front have to open, have to lengthen. A teacher that we had geez, got to be 10 years ago, Karen, Jesse said that when, and Karen's going to move back into the flow, when you're doing a posture, if he had one cue to give, it would be to do everything. And it is. Everything in your body has a job to do. So Karen's coming back here to sunbird. And as you did it before, whether it was just the arm, just the leg, or did both, do the same thing. When you exhale, get smaller. Pull your thigh forward and up. Elbow comes back and up. Inhale, extend your leg and arm and lift them up. Just follow your breath. But yeah, as I was saying, the teacher, again, he lives in Toronto now, Jesse, said, if I had one cue, do everything, because it's true. Everything has a job. Some things are to create strength and stability, but some things are often times needed to soften in order to get the most benefit out of a posture as well. So just one more time. And then lower your hand and your knee. Now move your hands just about a hand length ahead of your shoulders. If you ever get sore wrists, you can always move on to fists or even forearms here. Now move your shoulders over top of your wrists. Your knees can stay grounded here, tone through your lower belly to support your lower back here. Or you can tuck your toes and lift your knees off the ground for plank pose. Now in plank pose, whether your hips are the same height as your shoulders, or the slight lowering of your hips relative to your shoulders is fine. Just ensure again you feel supported in this area of your lower back here. Now we are going to lower to the ground, and your knees can come down if they are currently lifted, but lower and place yourself very, very gently to the ground. And once you're there, untuck your toes. Slide your forearms or elbows forward so they're underneath your shoulders. And again, you can play with this position, moving your arms a little further forward or moving them further back. But here your chest is lifted, so the extension here is happening in the front of your pelvis all the way up into your chest. So you're in a back bend. Essentially, any time you're in a back bend, the front of your body is stretching or lengthening. Now, if it feels okay after the first few breaths, you'd like to bring a little more space from the center of your chest to the front of your pelvis. You can push into your hands and lift your elbows off and lift your chest a little higher. Keep your legs firm in this pose. And if you notice you're pressing really firmly down, more so your big toes, make sure your pinky toes have a little firmness as well. And this helps to rotate your thighs internally and give you just a little more space around your sacrum. Last breath in the posture. Exhale to lower. Slide your hands closer towards your low ribs and push to all fours. And again, the two options, to child's pose, to downward facing dog. There's kind of a midpoint in half dog or puppy stretch, if anybody is familiar with that. Actually, Karen will demo it here. So hips in this posture stay over top of your knees. Get a lot of the qualities of downward facing dog in this pose, especially if you keep a tone through your low belly. And active hands, and just not the length in the back of the legs. It's probably pretty obvious. Now walk your hands back so they're underneath your shoulders and grab your blocks. Keep your toes tucked and walk your hands back with your hands on the blocks back towards your knees, and then push to a forward fold. And here, keep your hands on the blocks for support, and please always ensure that in your forward fold, Karen has very open legs, open the back of her legs, very open. Okay, she can cut that if she wants. So here she's really open hamstrings, very stretchy. Let's just get past this. If you don't have that, bend your knees, and essentially what happens is it decreases the space between your the upper part of your lower legs and your sit bones, so that gets a lot shorter, and as such the muscles here ease. Not that it's easy or the tension subsides a great deal, but it will somewhat if needed. So you want to keep the hinge right here at your hips. Allow the muscles of your neck here to relax. So you notice when Karen straightened her legs, the hinge stayed here. If you straighten your legs and all of a sudden you feel stress in your lower back, your belly button moves away from your thighs. I don't want Karen to hold this for very long, it's very unhealthy. But that's where you'll, a couple of landmarks that will tell you that the tension actually from the back of your legs is trying to pull your pelvis back up and create the stress into your low back. Now support yourself into the ascent to mountain pose. You can walk your hands up your shins and up your thighs if you like, just to help that a little bit more. And then come to mountain pose. Now again, if you've been to my healthy hips and back class, you spent a lot of time in mountain pose, probably more than you'd like, but this is probably the most important posture that I feel that I teach, because there's so many opportunities to do this off our mat. Warrior 3, for example, there's fewer opportunities to do that. But I do take those opportunities. Whenever somebody asks me for directions, I always like, it's that way. So. Anyways. So just make sure you're evenly balanced in the weight you're holding in both legs. And there's a downward energy into the soles of your feet. If you have lower arches, you may want to lift your toes. It lifts the arches of your feet and helps to push your knees back in line with your hips. If you already have high arches, it might be a movement that's just extraneous. You can place your toes, still active, but place your toes back to your mat. With the downward energy moving through the soles of your feet, you feel that rebound energy that move up through the center of your chest. And so much of our postural habit pattern tends to round our shoulders forward. So again, stay connected into your back body so you feel again a little more spacious in between your shoulders across your chest. So step to the top of your mat and we'll refocus back into the front body here. You may want to keep your blocks handy on either side of your mat or the top edges. Now step your left foot back, about halfway down your mat. Keep the ball of your foot on the ground, but your heel lifted. Now your hands stay at your hips here. Bend your left knee until it starts to lower to the ground and you bring tension into the front of your pelvis on that side. Now again, see as Karen's tilting her pelvis, do what she did that second time. So pull your lower belly in, tilt your pelvis back. Now we'll add the stretch across our shoulders as well and across our chest. Take your hands behind you, interlace your fingers, and then push your knuckles down towards your left heel. So again, you're using the strength of your low belly to stretch out the front of your pelvis on the left side, and then the squeezing and hugging action of your arms to lengthen you through the center of your chest. Just a couple more breaths here. Take your hands apart and place them on your right thigh. Start to straighten out both legs and shorten up your stride just a little so you can place your left foot to the ground. Toes angled about 45 degrees, but certainly nuance that angle as is needed. Keep your right big toe mound pushing down, and then draw back through your outer right hip and start to walk your hands down your right thigh. Always skip your knee, no pressure on your knee. Place your hands then, if you're moving down further, to your shin. Now, if you have your hands around mid-shin, this is where I suggest taking blocks, because when you can keep your wrists, your hands apart, it means you can keep your chest more open. When your hands are on one shin, shoulders are rounded forward. Now, here, continue to draw back through your right hip, but be active through your upper back. So again, you're helping to just keep these muscles awake, and the more awake and engaged they are, the more opening your chest has. Now, it might not feel like much of a stretch across the front of your chest, but it is certainly some of that, but more so to strengthen the mid and upper back here. Now lift your back heel so your left toes point forward, put a little bend in your right knee, and step forward right into a forward fold. Hands can stay on blocks, or as before, you can place your hands on thighs or forearms just above your knees and your thighs as well. And movement really keeps the body healthy. So if there's a gentle sway or a flexion, an extension of your knees here. And if it's okay to allow the crown of your head to point right to the ground and relax the muscles of your neck, you may find a nice feeling of traction from the weight of your head pulling into the tissues above. If you notice that your toes are gripping your mat, just bring some weight back into your heels and start to walk your hands back up your shins, back up your thighs, and bend your knees as much as you need to make your way to mountain pose safely. we'll go to the other side. So step your right foot back. So again, keep the ball as a shorter stride, so you can put the bend in your knee. So put bend in, as she has, into your right knee. Now whether your knee is a few inches off the ground or lifted a little higher, you're gonna have to find that sweet spot for yourself. Just ensure again that there's a feeling of tension in the front of your pelvis on the right side. You can increase or decrease that through the tilt of your pelvis and also the tilt of your torso to, again, exactly what's needed. Take your hands behind you, interlace your fingers with a different pinky finger on top, and push your knuckles towards your back heel. So you're keeping tone through your lower belly, but stretched through the top of the upper chest. Allow your breath to support you for 2 more full breaths. Be very aware here if your head is jutting forward, you want your ears over top of your shoulders. Your head wasn't, it's just fine. Place your hands now on your left thigh. Straighten out both legs, and again, a little shorter step here. So a little hop forward with your right foot. Push down or ground through your left big toe mound. Draw your hip back and feel your chest moving forward. And as it is moving forward, walk your hands down so you can continue to support yourself here. And when your hands are at mid-shin, if they are down that far, take your hands onto the blocks. And every breath in, there is movement, always, as long as you're breathing, there's movement in your body. But every breath in, feel a backward pull or backward energy through your outer left hip, or reach forward through the top of the crown of your head, so you feel, again, extended through your spine. And every exhalation, you may find your torso moves a little closer to your left thigh, but not so much the intention of the pose, certainly to move closer to your left thigh. It's just to bring an amount of tension in the back of your left leg that suits your body this moment. Now lift your back heel. Move your hands a little further ahead of your left toes again, so you have 3 things to put your weight into when your right leg steps forward, back into your forward fold. And we're going to make our way back down to our mat. You're welcome to travel through malasana, a squat if you'd like, and you can heel toe your feet a little wider, heels turned further in than your toes. And here you can keep your bum lifted a little higher, with your elbows just above your knees. If it's okay for you to lower further, you can lower your bum below your knees and sit on a block or 2, or any elevation. But if you do get your bum lower than your knees, take your elbows to your inner knees. I find when I notice people have their triceps to their inner knees, it's often accompanied by exactly this. Yeah, right here. Thank you, Karen. That's perfect. So yeah, lift, so it's just your elbows, the outside of your elbows here. And then you can create, again, more connection through your back body, more extension through your spine, and openness across your chest. Perfect. Thank you. Now we'll end up on our backs. So there's 2 ways to go there. You can go forward and place both hands on the ground. You might find a little more stability in moving that way, or as Karen does, just put a hand behind you and lower down. Place your bum right around the middle of your mat, and if your blocks are at the front, just make sure they come back with you to within arm's reach. Now once you're reclined, if there's just a moment in stillness, or if there's any movement that just seems natural to be needed here, just find a few moments for that. Okay, and then keep your knees bent, feet parted, again, 4 to 6 inches, a little more, a little less, ankles underneath your knees here. And take your blue block, or take something that you can put pressure into. In this case, obviously, it's a block. Place it right in between your inner knees, inner thighs. And this is a point to press into. Now from here, first bend your elbows. So we're going to open in this posture as well, open the muscles across the front of our chest, engage the ones in our back body. So you can start that by pushing down through your upper arms. So you feel, again, the squeeze of your shoulder blades. Now push down through your feet. So you accompany the push down with your arms, with the push of your feet to lift your hips. Now when your hips are lifted, try to keep the pressure on the block. Now extend your arms forward, place your palms down. This is an internal rotation of your arms. This might be the safest place if anyone has any shoulder concern or issue. You'll want to keep your arms as such. But if there's no such concern, and again you want to accentuate the opening across your chest, then clasp your hands underneath your bum. This turns now into an external rotation of your arms. So as mentioned, if anyone has any shoulder concern, this would be a little bit more stressful position for the shoulders. A little gentle press down through the back of your head just helps to keep your muscles around your neck more active in support of the finer bones and joints of your upper spine as well. But keep pushing into the block. Apart if they happen to be clasped. Slowly lower your bum. Just take the block, place it to a side, but not too far away, because we're going to do that one more time. And again, anything to counter pose here, if you'd like to, bring your knees in as Karen did, or bring them up into your chest. And then we'll do that one more time, the back bend bridge pose, Setu Bandhasana. Once you've got your feet placed, bend your elbows, push down from your elbows up to the backs of your shoulders so your chest opens. Couple now the pressure with your feet to lift your hips. Extend your arms, palms either turned down or interlace your fingers. If your palms are turned down, that's just fine. You can still activate your back quite a lot here by pushing down from fingertips to the backs of your shoulders. But it'll keep your arms in an internal rotation, or shoulders in an internal rotation. Final breath in. Take your hands apart if they're clasped. Lower your bum. Take the block. Just place it over to a side. Take a moment or two to move. And lower your feet back to the ground. Grab any prop, any elevation that you have. We'll take an inversion for about a minute. An inversion is just when your hips are lifted higher than your heart and your head. So even downward facing dog or forward fold, they're inverted, but this one's a little more passive. So push down through your feet as though you're doing bridge pose again, and slide the prop underneath the blocks or the bolsters underneath you, and then lower your pelvis back down. Now from here, keep your arms down by your sides. Your feet can stay grounded or extend your legs up towards the ceiling. Now moving towards Shavasana, so to make the postures as calming for the nervous system as possible. So again, Karen's got a lot of length in the back of her legs. She's very flexible. If you're not quite as much and you're keeping your legs straight and there's a lot of tension here, just bend your knees and allow your thighs to come closer towards your torso, and that'll ease some of that feeling of tension. You can also add the extension of your arms up towards the ceiling. Notice if you start to reach up towards your feet, just allow your arms to just be heavy. So not just enough strength to keep them lifted, but nothing extra. You may even be able to see your palms, a little crease in your elbows. Relax, curl to your fingers. Again, if you'd like to pause the video and spend more time in a In your inversion, I would never suggest that that might be a bad idea, but we'll keep moving on towards Shavasana, so lower your arms, lower your feet. Now, you're welcome to take Shavasana, as Karen is moving into right now. So coming back full circle to where your hips are lifted a little higher than your shoulders and your ankles. Again, the sensation of back bending is going to be present in the pose or in this shape. So if you're done or your back just doesn't feel that that's needed, your body doesn't feel that that's needed, you can just place your hips, your bum right on the ground and just take what's called regular Shavasana. Bring your awareness back to the muscles, again, that connect to the spine, your lower spine, lumbar vertebrae, right to the front of your pelvis, where your psoas connects with your iliacus, to become your iliopsoas, and then to your inner thighs. And on your exhalation, try to relax and soften in that area a little bit more deeply. One kind of language or how we speak about our body often can put ourselves in a bit of a conflict where we talk about our body as though it's done something to us. So I have conversations all the time where people, oh, it's my psoas or my hips are really tight. They're tight for a reason. Your body does the best that it can to adapt, to adjust the stresses that we're constantly putting it under. Sometimes it can no longer deal or adapt to those stresses, and pain can arise. Especially when it's in that area, it'll radiate down, it'll radiate up because it's the hub of the body. But your psoas, iliacus, walking, running, standing just upright, if you enjoy these things, be nicer to your psoas, your iliacus, because these are the muscles, the primary movers that enable, certainly not the only ones. There's a lot of musculature around your hips that help to support those actions and movements, but definitely the psoas and iliacus are high on that list. As with the inversion, if you want to just spend more time here, just continue to lie down and continue your Shavasana. We'll bring Karen out of it. So bend your knees. Walk your feet closer to your bum so you can lift and just slide the proper props out from underneath you. When your bum comes down, again, the longer held back bend might feel nice to bring your knees slowly up into your chest. Lower your feet back to the ground. Keep your right arm extended out above you. Roll to your right side. Take some breaths in the fetal position. And when you're ready to come to your seat, just push through your left hand, come all the way to the seated position. Seated, and notice because postural habit patterns can just come in very quickly. So if your pelvis is tilted back and your shoulders are rounded forward, just move your weight forward onto your sit bones, and as you're doing that, lift up through the center of your chest so you feel the inner curve of your lower spine present. And roll the heads of your shoulders back so there's this gentle connection or contraction in the space between your shoulder blades. And try to be sensitive to the position of your head. If your head is jutted forward, just bring your ears back, and even lift through the back edges of your ears. important moment, as important as any other in practice. It's just the acknowledgement of your efforts. So bring your palms together. And I'd like to thank you very much for joining myself and Karen for this class. And thank you, Karen. Namaste. Enjoy the rest of your day.